Hello, I'm Julien Malara, and for those who don't know me, I built my house with used shipping containers. I did everything from A to Z without the help of professionals, and I made about 30 videos on the subject that we broadcast on this YouTube channel. I've inspired a lot of people to get into this type of construction. And today I'm supporting dozens of you in your maritime container projects. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a container home from A to Z, step by step. And in the description, you can download a small book that I wrote for free, which summarizes everything I'm presenting to you today. If my videos have inspired you to build with shipping containers, don't hesitate to visit the site mamaisonconteneur.fr. You can schedule a call with me so we can discuss your projects and see together how I can best support you. To save you time, money, and help you build the house of your dreams under good conditions, to make it easier to understand, an animation will be present throughout the video demonstrating the step-by-step construction of the container house. And in addition, I'm going to put a lot of plans, a lot of images from my site or other sites. And if you want even more detailed tutorials, I'm also putting in the description the playlist My Container House, where you will find the 30 or so tutorials we've made. All right, let's go. First step, we have our land. Before buying it, we obviously checked with the town hall that we could build a shipping container house on it. We will offer multiple foundation options. First, make a concrete slab, but it's really not the best choice because it's expensive. It uses a lot of concrete, polluting heavily, and is completely unnecessary. The big advantage of a shipping container house is that you need much smaller foundations than for a traditional house. So, we're going to go with concrete blocks placed every 4 meters. And on these concrete blocks, we're going to put a steel plate that will be linked to the concrete and will be useful to us later. If we want an even more ecological solution, and especially one that installs much faster, we have technopiles. These are stainless steel screws that we drive several meters into the ground and that can easily support a container house. That's the solution that I chose for my house. Step 2 is delivering the containers. For a house, it is generally recommended to buy used shipping containers because it's more economically and ecologically interesting. Buy new shipping containers. For me, it's complete nonsense because we forfeit all the economic and ecological advantages of this construction type. Generally, we will try to take as many 12-meter containers as possible, also called 40 feet, and high cube, meaning they have 2.70 meters of ceiling height. These are the containers we find the cheapest. It's the most practical to build a house. We will avoid as much as possible the 6-meter maritime containers, also called 20 feet, because they are very hard to find used. In iCube, therefore, we would have to buy them new, and therefore we would lose the economic and ecological interest. So there you have it. We're going to go with 2 12-meter maritime containers. iCube, it's really the best choice. Then the containers are delivered and installed by the company that sold them to us. For the third step, we're going to weld the containers to our foundations. The steel plates can be placed directly on our concrete piles or the techno piles. Then, we're going to weld steel plates between the different containers in order to link all of this and have one large structure. And finally, we will come and stick bituminous strips between the containers on the steel plates in order to have one large structure that is well sealed. The next step, however, is optional. Actually, it's if you want to keep the container walls visible on the inside. And generally, we advise to sand the walls so that the new layer of paint adheres better. The problem is that this project is by far the most exhausting of our entire adventure. If you double the interior walls with plasterboard, or if you buy professional paint that can be applied to the walls, without needing to sand beforehand, skip this step. Do not sand. If you can avoid sanding, avoid doing it. For example, if I had to do it over, I think I would double it with plasterboard. It would allow me to avoid sanding because it was horrible. And above all, it would allow me to run all my plumbing, all my electricity behind the walls to have much cleaner finishes in the end. That's what I advise you to do today. There, our structure out of water, out of air is ready. We can work inside, dry and cut our walls to create our different spaces. For that, generally, we're going to use a grinder. It works very well. That's what I used. But if you are a more experienced handyman, you can also try the plasma torch. When cutting our walls, we will always keep at least 5.9 inches from the ceiling to maintain the container's rigidity. We will reinforce all openings later in the next step. And then, once we have cut all our interior walls, we can cut the exterior walls to prepare for the arrival of our joinery. So our doors, our bay windows, our windows, etc. By cutting the walls of our containers, we have weakened the structure. Well, more or less, it depends on how many openings we make. So we're going to come and reinforce all of this. Inside, we're going to place posts, and if we think about it far enough in advance, we're going to make sure to hide these posts in the walls, in the drywall partitions of our house. Then, once we have stiffened the interior structure, we will also stiffen our openings for our joinery by placing 4x4 semi-Naco steel tubes on each side of the openings. If you start to go wild with floors, multiple containers, and you cut a lot, go through a structural study office. It will be more reassuring. Otherwise, a little common sense is enough. And if you want a middle ground, call us at mamaisonconteneur.fr. I would be delighted to guide you in your projects and give you the best advice. Well, we had a structure that was out of water, out of air. We made a lot of holes in it. It's time to install the joinery to make them watertight again. We're going to start by building oriented strand board frames that we're going to place in our openings, and we're going to screw these frames into our steel reinforcements. Then we're going to take our joinery and we're going to install them in tunnel in our oriented strand board frames. We then screw them into the oriented strand board frames. And there we have it. Our joinery is installed. It's really not very complicated. Once again, we've made a detailed tutorial on the YouTube channel, so go check it out if you want more details. But this is not the most complicated step in building the house. We're now moving on to the slightly more physical part of this project. Since we're going to create a wooden structure all around our shipping containers to accommodate the insulation that we're going to do from the outside, we start by fixing brackets every 60 centimeters in width and every 1.50 meters in height. If we keep the shipping containers visible inside the house, we will have to weld the brackets. On the other hand, if we double it with drywall, then it's less serious. We can come and screw the brackets. The screws will go a little inside the house, but it will be hidden behind the drywall, and it's still easier to screw than to weld. After installing the brackets, we screw the rafters on top. And we try to make sure that there are rafters on both sides of our joinery to stiffen our oriented strand board tunnels. And finally, at the bottom of the rafters, we attach a rodent-proof grid that will support the insulation and prevent small creatures from nibbling at our insulator. But before putting in the insulation, we will continue our exterior structure by building our frame. And there, it's going to be an even more physically and technically complicated construction site. We're stepping up a level. And we have several frame options. We can either make a flat roof, a single slope roof, or a double slope roof. We can even make 3-4 slopes. There is a simplifying one. And for your information, a flat roof can actually be a single slope, double slope. It's just that the slopes are less than 5%. There are really dozens of ways to do your roofing already, depending on the finish you want. Do you want tiles, steel tray? Do you want a terrace roof, a green roof? Already that changes everything. Depending on where you live, places where there is a lot more snow, you have to make different roofs than if you build it in the south. I won't be presenting all the alternatives in this video. I advise you to inquire with a carpenter or ask for advice in Syria or on the site My Container House Point. Father me, I could give you more personalized advice in this video. I'm going to give you an example so that you understand the basics. But know that there are dozens of ways to do your carpentry in this video. Since we're just starting with a small house based on 2 shipping containers, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to make a single slope roof. If you want to make a double slope roof, you double what I'm going to present to you. And if you want to make a flat roof the same, you just make a slightly less steep slope and that will do the trick. To start, a bit of popularization on the names of the wood sections. So in fact, we're going to use wooden beams, let's say, to make our entire structure. And depending on the section, the size of these beams, they have different names. The largest beams are called sleepers. Then smaller, you have the bastings. Even smaller, you have the rafters. And even smaller, you're going to have the litotes, battens, all that. In short, stop saying rafter when referring to a piece of wood, okay? Using the correct terms, it will indicate the section you need to start with. We're going to take beams or bastings depending on the size of our structure. We're going to make triangles and we're going to connect them by putting a section of wood every 1 meter 50 or so. Then on these bastings, we're going to screw rafters every 60 centimeters. Then on these rafters, we're going to staple a rain screen so that our frame is well sealed. If we want to put tiles, we will need to add laths, and the spacing between each lath will depend on the size of the tiles you want to put. And if you install steel decking there, no need for laths, we can put that directly on the rafters. Steel decking, you can buy simple or what we call sandwich panel. It's steel decking with a bit of polyurethane insulation underneath. It allows to waterproof, still put a rain screen underneath. It will provide double security. It insulates a bit and reduces the noise of rain falling on the steel decking. So, it's not bad. So even if we put sandwich panels on, so our steel decking with a bit of insulation, we still need to properly insulate our roof with what our thermal studies office advises us. The ideal choice is often wood wool because it's a very ecological insulator, very efficient, both in winter and summer, very easy to install. It's not toxic, it's perfect. The problem is that it's a little bit expensive. The alternative that I put on my house is cellulose wadding. It's recycled newspaper, so it's also very ecological. It's very simple to implement, it's not toxic, it's perfect, and it costs much less. In fact, you're going to come and project 40 to 60 cm of cellulose wadding directly onto the roof of the shipping container, which will act as a vapor barrier. So it will prevent the humidity inside the house from getting into the insulation. And once you've put in the cellulose wadding, you need to make sure to close off the rest of your roof with a rain barrier. So that really, there's never any water that comes into contact with the insulation because that would reduce its performance. Now that we have our roof, we can continue the insulation with the walls. And there, I'm going to go back to the ideal choice, which is wood wool. We're going to put a first layer horizontally, then a second layer vertically. This cross-laying will simply allow us to limit thermal bridges and therefore have better insulation. Then, as with our roof, we're going to staple a rain screen onto our rafters to protect the insulation from rain and humidity, and then we're going to screw battens onto our rafters. These battens will then allow us to accommodate the wood cladding, and they are very important because it's necessary to maintain an air gap between the rain screen and the cladding in order to more easily dry any moisture that could get in there. It's crucial to leave an air gap between the cladding and the rain screen. If you ever want to put stucco instead of cladding, then it's very simple. Let's go back a bit. We put our first simple layer of wood wool, then we will come to put a second layer of rigid wood fibers. This rigid wood fiber, it will act as a rain screen, and in addition, it will be able to directly accommodate a stucco coating. So you can come and apply your stucco directly on the scattered insulating wood fiber, so it's very practical. From an economic or ecological point of view, both solutions are equivalent. There are pros and cons, it's ultimately an aesthetic preference. So for me, I prefer not to do stucco, I like wood siding. Let's go back to our wood siding. And there you have it, the exterior envelope of the house is finished. So you're not fooled, it's really not as simple as what I showed you in this video. It takes more time, there are small aesthetic finishes to do that can really take weeks, even months. Take your time and allow ample space in your project. And then, in addition, we haven't completely finished our insulation work since there is still the floor insulation to do, and that we're going to do it inside the house. We took I-cube shipping containers, so we have 2.70 meters of ceiling height, so we can insulate from the inside without any problem. And we're going to start by doing a screed. That means we're going to level the floor everywhere. Then, once we have a straight floor, we're going to put 10 cm rigid polyurethane panels. Additionally, we will install 0.59 inches oriented strand board panels on top. This will allow us to put whatever we want on these oriented strand board boards. Tile, parquet, linoleum, you have the choice. And there you have it. The container house is ready for interior furnishing. And if you have a lot of questions about insulation, just know that you are anyway required to go through a thermal study office who will advise you on the insulation to be implemented. And if you follow what the thermal study office advises well, there should not be any problem. For example, I had my thermal study office who had advised me on the implementation. I did all that, and in the end I had it checked by professionals who validated that my house is indeed in DPEA, so it is very well insulated. So everything I presented to you is still validated, let's say in practice. On my house, I lied to you a bit. We didn't really see the whole house from A to Z, because there's still the plumbing, electricity, heating, drywall walls, everything to do inside. But that, let's say we could have that in other videos. I've made tutorials on these subjects, by the way. Here you can either go there by yourself or call in professionals. In reality, plumbing, electricity, it's really not complicated. Putting up plasterboard walls is not complicated either. The only complicated thing, perhaps, is applying the plaster between the plasterboard panels. There, to have a very clean finish, it still requires a skill that I did not have. If I had to do it again, I would still call a professional to do the plastering, and then I would apply the paint and do everything else. So if you embark on this kind of adventure, try to choose when you need a professional, when you don't need one. You can also go to my container house point FR so that I can accompany you in your maritime container project. That way, I can also advise you on the projects you can manage and on the others where it is better to call in professionals. If you're interested, check out the resources in this video's description. You have all our YouTube tutorials. You have the free book that I put in the description for you. Once again, you have maisonconteneur.fr so that I can directly assist you with your projects. Don't hesitate to also ask your questions in the comments, to send me messages on Instagram. In short, I'm here to help you, to advise you. Because there isn't much in the way of resources on container homes in France at the moment. So I'm trying to do my best to popularize this type of house and help you have the homes of your dreams under good conditions without wasting too much time, too much money. In short, I hope you enjoyed this video, learned a lot of things. Don't hesitate to share it as much as possible. Send it to all the people who are wondering whether it's a good idea or not to build a container house. Send it to your families so they have some idea of the type of project you're getting into. That's partly why I made this video, also to simplify the understanding of building a container house around us. Thanks for watching till the end. It's Julien. See you soon on this channel. Bye.